Cool, so welcome to the Writers Room, where we take a franchise and we see if we could do any better. And as always, just to stipulate at the start, this isn't us slagging off what was come before. We will give our opinion, but we do recognise that two guys in a garage without the pressures of studio or budget obviously would find it easier than these guys perhaps have. But with that said, can we do any better? What are we doing this month, Matthew?
Well, Michael, we figure we're going to do Aliens. So it's had a checkered past, it's fair to say, and uncertain future at the moment. It's going to be a TV series on the horizon.
Yeah,
right?
There's a lot of if, ands or buts.
But yeah, we're going to give ourselves an hour to see if we can fix this thing.
Yeah.
So let's go to the table and see what we can do.
See if we can fix Alien.
Yeah. No, don't do that.
Okie dokie.
We're going to have to do this off of phones. Research. You're already dangling into your microphone.
Yeah.
So, or you're better on the phone with doing the dates.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Right.
I already knew Alien 2, so 1979.
So okay, hold on a minute. We got the Alien franchise as it stands.
Are we doing that? Got you.
So let's talk it through what's going on and all that sort of stuff. So this franchise starts with Alien. Yes.
By Ridley Scott in 1979. Absolute masterpiece of cinema.
Undeniably perfect.
Phenomenal.
And then you got its first sequel, which is Aliens, which was 1986. James Cameron.
Yes. Who made one of the best sequels, in my opinion. Just like he did with Terminator 1 and Terminator 2, the guy knows how to make a sequel. So I'm very excited for Avatar, which we will cover at one point in the future, because Alien is amazing, Aliens is fantastic. This is the horror, this is the action, and they're both brilliant.
Yeah, it's really pretty phenomenal what they managed to do with that.
Then they go downhill a little bit.
And Alien
3, which was 1992.
1992, which was do tell me who directed it.
It is the famous director that I've forgotten his name of really quickly, David Fincher.
Of course it is.
Yeah.
Now I like Alien 3, but well, we're going to get into where we're going to splice in.
Yeah.
And I've got a pretty convincing argument for around then. But
okay.
Alien 3 as a film is kind of interesting, but
it's interesting when you see the past of it. So I've said at the beginning of the episode, like, we are just two people in a garage with no pressure and stuff like that. Alien 3 is a great example of essentially there being two films, and studio, director, producer just not agreeing, and that's the mess. So I mean, in this collection, the anthology, I think they have both versions of Alien 3.
One of them's with the dog, one of them's with the cow.
Exactly, and it just very, very... And even though you get the director's cut, as they call it, they are wildly different films.
So we talk that we haven't got pressure, but this is this is exactly what happens with pressure. So then I'm not going to be able to spell this. So I'm even struggling with Alien now. Alien
Resurrection.
Aliens or Alien?
No, it's Alien Resurrection. ERS.
Let's just do Res.
Alien Resurrection. Yeah.
And that's 1997.
Oh. Famously written by Joss Whedon, with someone else directing it, and there's a lot of talk about how his writing, and it's kind of similar with James Gunn with the Belko Experiment. He wrote it, someone directed it, like taking a different tonal shift. But then that ends essentially there, the series with Sigourney Weaver, the kind of this. All four of these follow naturally on. They are a quadrilogy of the franchise. So but not to leave it alone, you then have, technically speaking, it was the AVP films.
Oh, yes. I was going to jump. So, you're
going back to those. So, AVP, which is 2004, Paul W.S. Anderson.
2004, yep.
And then Alien versus Predator Requiem, so AVP-R, I guess you could call it, 2007, by the brothers.
Yep, and then we got the prequels, which is Prometheus, and then thank God I got these here.
Prometheus was 2012.
I'm like literally copying it off a box, and I'm still going slow. Prometheus, 2012, and then
the last one, which
Covenant?
was Alien Covenant, 2017.
2017.
17.
That's a lot of films, actually, isn't it?
Yeah, there is a lot. And as you say, although it's not official, so we can't put it down, there is a lot of talk of a possible TV series of Alien coming out, though there's been no talk about cast, plotline or anything, but it is in development as a Disney Plus. So, straight off the bat, thoughts on the franchise?
Yeah, well, kind of echoing what you said a minute ago, which is that these two are
phenomenal,
faultless, pretty much.
Yes.
Then Alien 3 is kind of like interesting, and like if it wasn't called Alien, it was something else, it'd be fucking amazing. Alien Resurrection, for me, is really not good.
I have a soft spot for it, and I think it's because I was a lot younger when I saw it. If I watch it back now, I can definitely recognise out of the four it is the weakest.
It's got like a sort of 90s charm to it.
It does, and it is very, well, it's of its time, but I really enjoyed like the idea of the facility on a spacecraft, then working on it, the aliens escaping, Alien being, Ripley now being part alien. Like,
yeah, I mean, like
it's silly, and I get it, but
it's very 90s.
Yeah, I also love the whole underwater sequence.
Yeah, that was cool. And then you got these two films which we discussed last month.
It just shouldn't, just awful.
Really bad.
Yeah.
Really, really bad. And then we get to this Sticky Wicket, which
interestingly
Ridley
enough,
Scott's return.
Exactly.
Right?
So Ridley Scott created Alien in 1979 and then passed on his blessings for James Cameron to do Aliens, and then moved on completely from the franchise. Seemed to be done. David Fincher, historically gone on to do great things, struggled a lot with it, and I can't remember the director of Alien Resurrection, but obviously Josh Whedon went on to do the Avengers.
He did all right.
Else. So it's had a really big cast of directors, Ridley Scott, James Cameron, Josh Whedon. But then the prequels, because that's what Prometheus and Covenant are, they are prequels to the series. They are also written and directed by Ridley Scott, which is an interesting take on essentially the original creator coming back to do them. And so Prometheus and Alien, although we don't know quite the gap between Covenant and Alien, essentially is I'd say a good but very convoluted origin stories of the alien.
This is something which I felt that we were maybe getting stuck down in last time out on Predator, was that like you can get too bogged down into the weeds of
what is, how did they,
and
exactly.
This exactly what this feels like. There's just too much.
Yeah, they are good films. I mean, me and you actually saw Covenant in the cinema together, and I thoroughly enjoyed it.
You hold the shaft and I'll do the fingering, or whatever the line was.
Yeah.
Just like,
gone.
No.
Gone.
Watch me. I'll do the fingering.
But the film does hold up, and there are some really cool bits in it.
Yeah.
Some really good horror.
Good spaceship bits.
I definitely think Covenant was better than Prometheus, but I have only seen Prometheus once, to be fair, so it's a little harder to...
Yeah, and I like the introduction of the engineers, they're called?
Yeah, the engineers, yeah.
Yeah, that's a cool, like, that is a good sort of value added to the series, the season, series, whatever you want to call it. Franchise, that's the word. Okay, so look, no fucking about, Michael. Where would you chop in? Because I think that clearly this is exactly why we do this retcon part of this. Is that
100%.
It's as a moment when we can kind of shift the timeline and ignore stuff behind it. And I think this is exactly
100%.
what this is about.
I hear you completely.
So where would you put
These
it?
are unavoided because they're its own separate thing. Other than it being the same creatures, there's no connection to the franchise history. And as this is already a prequel, it kind of like, unless you were going to go even further.
So really, we're looking at this.
We're looking at these four essentially. Now, I know where you're going to go. I think my guess is...
You should have done an envelope.
Should have done an envelope. Should have done. If you watched last month, there was a red envelope. Whole big thing. I'm going to go in here. Straight after Resurrection. I'm going to continue the series on.
Okay, we might have our first argument here, and this is good because I would go in here.
Nice. Okay.
So what makes you think you're right?
I think that we've seen everything we can with the aliens at this point. Okay.
Yep.
I think that we've seen tons of them. We've seen a few of them. We've seen hybrid ones. We've seen them fight things. We've seen the original ones and everything else. My premise is, my thoughts would be to reinvent the franchise and go from the beginning again. I would go back to the OG, the original, in the sense of, in Alien, this thing is an unkillable, terrifying idea. Oh, Jesus. Terrifying creature, and it's taking over the ship and everything else. Now, in Aliens, they're cannon fodder. They're still dangerous, but they go down a lot easier. Granted, okay, they have the guns, and they didn't in this one. So, at the end of Alien Resurrection, the ship carrying them is hurtling towards Earth, right? And then they manage to blow up the space station, and the survivors travel down to Earth. Now, in all of these films, except for briefly in Prometheus, where you see a flashback, Earth basically doesn't exist, from what I gather. Or if it does, it's like there's space stations and everything else. Talk about Earth being a shithole. So in my theory, and this is where the basis of my acts would come together, doesn't matter about these to a certain degree. It's finally, the whole point of this is, as we discover in Prometheus and Covenant, like, man created AI, David created the aliens came down, the Weyland Corp found out about them, they've been interested in them, we never know why, they just find them interesting, weapons, we guess, or whatever like that, they're harvesting. I would go straight here. Essentially, this would be the premise set up. Ship crashes with survivors, no one's left alive. Earth, which, as they've mentioned a few times in the other films, is just a shithole, it's a waste dump, it's everything else. So in my imagination of it basically being like an awful shanty town, again, like Predator, like we talked about, like a kind of District 9-esque for those people that couldn't get off the planet. Collapses, people are like, fantastic, scrap metal and everything else, and in the base of the thing is a facehugger that's somehow been attached to the bottom of the ship that survived re-entry, and it impregnates, and then the whole adventure is one alien on Earth with a bunch of people that do not have the weapons to fight it and go back to that slasher origin of an alien hunting down people.
This is really interesting because I think for the first time doing this thing, we're like this, and so this is where, when we get to the hour, we're going to have to really work at reconciling, and that's where the interesting shit's going to happen. The dog is in the building. Yep. Okay. Interesting. I think something which will help with where I'm at is, like, if sort of say the guiding principles of the franchise and that sort of thing. Yes, yeah. And so, like, what I think are kind of like the main stuff is, I think it's space is crucial to the Alien films. So already we're
I agree with you,
which is good, and that includes ships and kind of that technology and that stuff. Okay. I also think that, like, story-wise, one of the most important things is it's more of an expression which I think is using as like kind of like the North Star of it is, whatever you do, you make it worse. So in Alien, every single decision made it worse. Don't land on the planet. They land on the planet. Don't just willy-nilly walk around a place. They willy-nilly walk around a place. Ripley's like, quarantine procedures, you stay outside. Ash opens the doors. He's got his ulterior motives, which comes onto our other thing, is corporate greed is also critical to the film franchise.
Yeah, completely.
And I can go on, like, so Aliens is like, it's always, whatever you try to do, it makes it worse. And I think Aliens is probably a better example of it, because they're like, we're going to get out of here, go to the site and nuke it from orbit. And so they call the dropship down. The dropship crashes and hits into the side of the atmospheric processor thing, which now starts a chain reaction, which means the whole place is going to blow up in a shorter period of time. They can't just sit it out. And it's like, whatever you do, you make it worse.
I like that. And I would agree with that as well. In all four of them, that you make it worse is a big key factor.
Yeah, and it's like that. And what I've got is very, very, very different, which is that, like, as I say, when we hit the timer for the hour, we're going to have to really work hard to reconcile, which is good. I would come in here, like I said a minute ago, which is just after Aliens, because I think losing Hicks and Newt was a shit idea. Like, they got through all of that stuff, and then just to kill him off in between pictures is like the cheapest death. And those actors are still alive. So it's like, that's our moment. So for me, what I'd do is I'd start the film off, open it up with, there is a ship flying along, unrelated to a lot of these characters, right? And the horror is, there's a lone ship. We should start the timer, actually, because we're in writing times.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, go for it.
Because I just realised I'm cheating.
Yeah, you'll just need to give me your kind of overview of...
Yeah, I think we need to hit the timer, because this is cheating.
Okay.
So look, we got a lot to do. So we've got the half an hour for the halfway point when we know we should really be getting to the act structure. Because we haven't even decided this yet. And if we decide this, we've really written the fucking movie. So I know it's not fair, but life's not fair. Whatever you do, you make it worse. We're off. Okay. So my story is, the movie opens up and we're on board a ship, and there is a facehugger loose on board this ship. And like, what it is that there's like a big kind of like effectively a tow going on. So like it's a big cargo ship, and there's the main ship in front, there's a big cargo thing behind it towing along. And the people on board, it's that truckers thing, because that's another big part of the Aliens films, is it's always low lives working it. It's never like corporate highbrows. So these people are kind of like in this situation, and then there's like something detects that there's like another thing moving around on board. It's a facehugger. And this is something which I don't think we've seen, is the egg process, as it stands, is the egg opens, the thing leaps out. I was like, what if that opens up and it's got longer to move around? Because I think the facehuggers are terrifying, but they've only been used from A to B and then very briefly scurrying.
Yeah.
What would one of them look like if it's on its own in a ship?
Love it.
And so I was like, the thing kind of like, one of the most intense moments as a kid is when there's a giant spider in your bedroom and it kind of hides somewhere. And now you're in this situation trying to find the thing and kind of like hunt it out and kill it. And so the beginning structure of this movie is played out in the horror of this fucking spider running around. And it's doing spidery things. It's making spiders' webs. And so I was like, if through the corridors there's these very fine webs, and so as people walk through it, it's kind of like feeling it. And it's kind of, so if it's sat there on these webs, and as someone walks through it, it feels it sort of vibrating and shaking, and it goes off.
Love it.
And another scene which I was like, this would just be super intense, is the person who gets it, is it's like kind of lowering from the ceiling, you know, like the way spiders will just do that.
Yeah.
It's kind of like coming out of the long tail of it, lowering onto somebody. And we really lean into that alien horror of, and this thing's this fucking face hugger in there. And it's basically an elongated, there's a giant tarantula in your pants, what are you going to do about it?
Yep.
Word gets out, so that's like kind of like effectively 0.1's long, and it's dealing with that horror of this creature on board. We pick up in like a bar, and Ripley and Hicks are running this bar. I told you this is a serious swap of what's going on.
Yeah.
They're done with all of this stuff. The corporation kind of like made them out to be like fucking idiots, and to sort of like said that they like destroyed stuff and just kind of, you know, completely dragged their name through the dirt. And they've now just set up a bar in the arse end of nowhere. Newt, her journey, her arc is she can't get the aliens out of her mind. The dealing with that trauma has just completely guided her life. She now works with a corporation, and her way of trying to fix her inner problem is to try to get hold of this alien problem. She wants to fix that internal nightmare by controlling everything around her. In the same way as Ripley, the way she tried to fix a problem was by blowing it up. And there's this different place.
Mm-hmm.
What happens, we're with Hicks and Ripley in their bar, and these other sort of like, as I say, it's like a truckery bar, but we're dealing with like space truckers effectively. And somebody in there is just like, you know, do you hear about there's a cargo ship off, and it's like, sort of joking with them, taking a piss. This has got one of your creatures in there. No. And they're kind of like looking at each other like, okay, that something's up with that. And they're sort of taking a piss, but they're giving glances to each other. Also working in there is Bishop, who's like mostly prosthetic kind of like bits kind of holding him up. He looks all kind of weird, but he's there.
Love it. Yeah. Lovely touch.
Newt, she works in a corporation. Corporation's like, we want you to go. And she's like, I want to go take care of this thing. There's something going on with that ship. And they're like, okay, she's a strong enough position that she can kind of do this stuff. She goes to see Hicks and Ripley to kind of like get their blessing. Like, I'm doing this. Ripley's like, I know what you're doing. I tried to do it. It isn't going to work. And she's like, you don't get it. I've got to do this. And they're like, well, you've not got my blessing, you're an idiot. So it's more of a cameo for those people because they're kind of like, whatever. We then go off, and what the main movie is it's lives and dies, and whatever you do, you make it worse. So one of the scenes I was thinking of is that, like, they get there, and they arrive on the ship, and they are now hunting down one alien, which they movies around, because we've seen the one facehugger, it's infected a dude, and they think there's an alien loose on this ship. So the idea is to get onto the main the tugboat effectively, kill the alien in there, take control of the tug, secure the cargo. That's the plan. Problem is, so they go there with Colonial Marines. She's leading the Colonial Marines. They arrive and they're hunting down an alien. And so it sort of plays out like them kind of like securing, and it's really intense and doing corridor by corridor. And we see them sort of like have a base of operations, and they slowly work their way out. Eventually they kill the alien. Fantastic. Turn the thing around, off we go. And to echo a scene from Alien, they sit down, have dinner, and then like an alien comes out, grabs one of them and runs off. And they're like, there was one facehugger, why is there two aliens? What the fuck? And so now they're like, fall back, what the hell's going on? They're like, what is the shipping manifest? Why is this egg here? What is going on? They now have to get in spacesuits, go into the main ship thing, and yada yada. And it's this constant kind of thing where they basically, in the cargo, they know that they find that there's a fucking shitload of eggs in there. Corporation is fucking with them. So now their plan is, we're gonna, once again, it's this constant, so like, in terms of Writers Room, like depending on where we get with this, like it's these sort of scenarios which are terrifying, which could kind of work. So I was like, maybe we have like a stuff where they have to do something and something breaks, and it's always tit for tat. You've done something, you've made it worse. You've done something, you've made it worse. Mm-hmm. Then I can't quite reconcile something where Ripley maybe sends a message to Newt, who then just sort of who is like, I'm Rebecca, I'm not Newt. Who says something which just kind of cuts through her at a key moment where she can let the aliens go. So, and that's the sort of the way it's done, is that like metaphorically and actually she severs she's not trying to control it, she like literally lets them go and draws a fucking line through it. So her arc is learning that you can't fix your problems by just nailing them down, you have to kind of let that shit go. Ripley learns that Newt isn't bad, she's just got this shit going on, and that sort of thing. So broadly, that's where I'm at. You're giving me a look.
I absolutely adore it. And you said this is going to be really tough. We've got a half hour or an hour to write this up, and I'm sold. Like, almost perfect.
Suppose is there any sticking points and things which aren't landing?
Not landing. The facehugger bit, I couldn't agree more. It is terrifying. It's horrific.
We just haven't seen enough of it.
100%. And also, I love the idea of when the Marines get on the ship to deal with whatever that was being carried, that there's more of them, like them hunting them down. It gives the option for more aliens, but also just playing with more face huggers. Like, just for the case in point of, they get close to your face but they're filled with acid. There's a whole lot there that, as far as I know, they've never dealt with. So like cutting one and then burning your own face.
You'd have, when the Marines get there is more than one large.
Yes, I would.
And they know it.
They don't know it. They're going down to get rid of one alien. They've seen a partial picture. They're like, look, I'd explain where I would fix it. Newt, I love, I adore, I think works brilliantly. The only thing that I'm not convinced on is I feel like these two people work for a company, and then they were, quite rightly, the company threw them under the bus and everything else. And then their adoptive daughter essentially joins the company, and they're on speaking terms and everything else. So, how I would play it, exactly your intro, face hugger, creepy scene, the spider webs bit is amazing. Newt wakes up, we don't know it's Newt. She's Rebecca.
Yes.
Everything else, she's playing it through. She gets going through some images and stuff like that. Something pops up on one of these things. She sees the tail end of it. She goes to headquarters immediately and she's like, this is this. I know this is it. They're really reluctant, but as you say, she's high enough up. She's like, I've studied the biology and everything else. Their reports say they found an egg. An egg means one. There's only one of them. She knows about them because she's been studying, because she was there. She's the lead.
You won the cargo, I won the alien. We're all winners.
Exactly, yeah. So let me go. They send her off with a bunch of space marines. They, on following it, are like, it's going way off course. Like, there's no one guiding the ship, and they took it off autopilot. They're like, it's heading into the sun. Okay? Yeah. They're like, we've got to get ahead of it. We've got to intercept. That means using this space gate. But to use this space gate, we have to refuel. She's like, seems fair enough. So there's only one refueling station in the whole area, and it's on, I don't know, this moon. And she's like, absolutely not, no way, not happening. And they're like, this is the only way. They're like, if we follow the normal route, they were like, it will be burnt up by the sun before we get there. Realising she hasn't got a choice, they go to the refueling station. At the refueling station is a bar. That bar is run by...
Is it too convenient?
No, because her reluctance to go to that bar.
Okay, yeah.
That's she doesn't want to go. There's a big thing of find another route and all this kind of interjection. She gets there. We don't see Sigourney. She refuses to talk to Newt. The dad talks, because in every argument, when it gets really bad, it's always the dad that tends to play peace, like, just talk to your mother and all this. Yeah. He comes on. She's not interested. We don't see Sigourney, I guess, or we do, but we don't see them interact. She goes off to do the mission anyway. When you get there, everything is you played out exactly as you said. They get there, they hunt down, they kill one of the aliens, and everything else. Then they get more motion sensor. One of them's taken out. They're like, there's a second one. They're like, but we've just killed one. You said one egg, one this. So all my research tells me that facehuggers only contain one egg. She doesn't call it a facehugger, but whatever it is. XYZ, she probably had named it some weird scientist. So then they're like, so she's like, the only plausible explanation is there are more eggs. At this point, they're like, we've got to find the rest of these eggs. You've got the other Marines dealing with the front, where it's so fucked up they can't get into. The ship is hurtling towards the sun. The idea is to regain control of the situation and take the ship with the cargo intact. That's what Wayland wants. They want the ship intact. Her job is to sort out the alien mess. The Colonial Marines are there to kind of take over the ship and form it. They can't get into the autopilot. When eventually they do, that's where a bunch of them are hanging out. They get slaughtered. So then Newt is stuck between the eggs, the aliens, and the autopilot device, stuck in the middle between the few. That's when she reaches out to her mum, Sigourney Weaver. Sigourney tells her, like, you know, let go. She has this reconcile. And she decides, in the ship or in the moment or whatever like that, to not, to like, I guess she battles it up to auto-correct it. She fights through everything else with a few of the Marines, gets to the front of the ship, and then rather than change the autopilot on so she can, or like turn it, like take it off the course that it's headed towards, being pulled in by the sun, she lets it run its course. She jumps on her ship, goes, and the ship just plummets into the sun, and Wayland Corp are getting hold, like, what's happened? She just turns off the computers and heads back to the space station.
We're close. So I think the thing is what, like, I really like the autopilot thing. I mean, for me, and like the sun, like being next to a sun, that like something would be really cool is that, like, if, let's say that like you've got the tug bit at the front and then the ship, the cargo thing's just like massive. You can kind of imagine it like this sort of scenario.
Yeah.
They're like, if they sort of like some scenario where they have to go in here and they, as I say, they have to do it as a spacewalk, because this would just be a vacuum. We wouldn't bother pressurizing just cargo stuff. So doing a spacewalk, and they find like all the eggs in there, and that like perhaps that the thing which is kind of like making it so it's fucking them up is that it's oxygen, it's oxygen. So what's happening is that like they go, look, the aliens are in here, the Xenos as they would call them are in here. They are using the recyc to kind of come in and out as they please. If we sever one of these, we might be able to like restart it back up and just kind of like kill the one which they're in, and we'll be okay. We'll just keep the aliens secured in here, and it's someone else's problem. Now, to make it so it goes wrong, if that breaks and starts venting out gas out of it, they've now got a situation where they're running out of air because they've only got like 5 hours of breathable air or something.
And this is one of several cargo ships where...
And now, and this is venting, so now this thing's spinning. And so like, if you like on the ship and like you're next to a sun, as the thing's spinning, you just got like almost like a natural strobe happening. And for them it all feels normal, but like for outside, like the lights are strobing.
Yeah, I've got one other little thing that I want to add to this as well, right? Is you've got them here, they've fucked up this, they've got to get through the aliens to fix the oxygen to be able to pilot the ship.
Yes.
So that's
so it's further back.
Yeah, so it's further back and everything else. However, they're like, these are where the cargo is contained. They were like, this is the front of the ship. This is just a connecting joint where no one's supposed to live or be. It's just put on.
Yeah.
So they're like, it's not protected. So because the ship's so close to the sun, as it's spinning, if it goes in direct sunlight, it just cooks anything in there. Because this is protected because this was the pilots. All the cargo has got the shield on, but the bit in between, basically when it hits sunlight,
in the way in which we're beating them down, I love that like Newt being in between is that like they're fighting on too many fronts. They're having to work on too many problems.
So they're hurtling towards the sun. Problem number one.
Right.
Problem number two, the aliens. There's more than they thought. Problem number three, to fix the aliens, they got rid of the thing. It's backfired. They have oxygen. So to fix this problem, they have to deal with the aliens here to get through to take this oxygen and reroute it there. You can only do it manually, so they've got to go through. But it's all right, we'll clear out the aliens. Once they clear out the aliens, they realise that this section of the ship superheats, and so they've got to time it right, because if they don't time it right, they've got to wait. And then when they do get there, they realise that this is where one or two of them have come, and they think they've managed to sort the source. The reveal of it being lots of eggs, and more importantly, the corporation greed and everything else. It's like there's only... So, sorry, let me, I'm getting excited, right? So, this is the ship.
Yeah.
They land, they get in, they deal with one of the alien, they then find a couple more, they're like, shit. They retreat in here, block it off, they do the air and everything else. Once they're in there, and they realise they've got a problem with air, they realise that the ship is travelling a lot faster to the sun than they thought it was. And the reason why is there's this other container attached to it. And they're like, but the plans only had one. So why are there two? And someone could be like, this happens all the trouble when someone shoves something in or doesn't pay for it. So they're like, however, it's a blessing because this can then reroute oxygen. We just got to get through. I think we finished the aliens. Go through, one more alien left, takes out a couple, they take it out. The heat thing, they get in here, and that's when it's the Wayland crate that they've added onto the freight, haven't told anyone about. That's where like they see it's a Wayland freight.
Maybe they don't even see it. Maybe they go through and the audience
sees it, but we see that it is, and that's where it's chocker full of eggs. And they see that not only are there loads of eggs, there's loads of unbroken ones, and then you hear them, and then they've just unleashed even more.
What would be just skipping ahead for a minute? I think what's the best final image, right? So on board we're spinning, and so it's like strobing and nuts, and so whenever the interior lights are on, it's kind of more overpowering than that. But they go off and we've got like the strobe of the sun and it's just fucking carnage.
Love it.
The final image, I think the thing which kind of like is the moment, is Newt letting go and breaks it off. And the way of stopping ploughing into the sun is we nick that from Interstellar, where when you let something go, you're basically doing a mass driver, that like you're moving forward by ejecting mass out the back. So she is free and clear by just chucking those fucking things into the sun, and knowing that the corporation is going to destroy her, but also it's about her arc of kind of like, I can't control this, I've got to let it go.
Love it. The only thing that just needs to be solved is, if that was an option, why didn't she do it at the start? So maybe it's...
Because I think she wants to... Her idea is to secure and control these
100%, but when the shit was really hitting the fan and she's got other soldiers with her, or maybe at that point they're all taken out and it's just her.
Well, this is the thing, is that like they think they're going for one, and so they've only got ammo and kit for like an alien. So what do you need?
So when they go in here and they come across the multiple ones and they die and everything else, that's when almost all the Marines are taken out. And then they go in here, they've got the problem with the oxygen and everything else, they then go through, have this issue with the sun chamber thing, get in here, find all the eggs, one's hatched, and there's only one alien left, and it's after her. So then you get the alien moment with the Marines here, but then a call back to the original alien when she discovers that crate, she's all by herself. And she's only gone back there to release something there that means...
So I think what we need to do is, if we will sort out our act structure and start to kind of like... This film is very much a game of set pieces. Mm-hmm. So the thing which also I think we need to reconcile is, where are Hicks and Ripley? Because I don't think we're lined up on, and maybe Bishop. What's going on.
I love Bishop working in the bar and like just being like all like half-heartedly like put back together as best as they can without the science and everything else. I just don't feel that she would go asking for their blessing, but I like the idea of them being in it.
What can we do which is better than that? Because it does. I think the thing is that Sigourney Weaver's character's way of coming to terms with it, it's like they're kind of playing this with each other. So her ways of coming to terms with this was to try to kill them all, and it didn't work. It sort of worked, but it didn't. In that, like, lots of other people died needlessly, really. Like, it was, that's the situation. From her point of view, the corporation was going to do what they were going to do anyway. And so this is kind of like Newt's way of coming to terms with it. They're different people. And I think that like Newt's way of trying to do it is to kind of do this. And it's like that sort of mother-daughter thing of just like, I know what you're trying to do, but it isn't going to work. And so is there some other... And so, because then like, once again, if like what I thought is that the thing which could be what sets it off is if it's like, in the crazy moment when it's all noisy and aliens, everything's carnage, like the final sort of message comes through, it's all broken up and it's just looping one section of it, like from Ripley being I like, gotta let go. She's just like,
okay, well then perhaps it's not the bar thing, perhaps it's nothing like that. Perhaps they call her when she's en route to the mission and she lies, and someone says something or overhears, and she overhears it, and she starts screaming and shouting at her.
I don't think that Hicks and Ripley and Bishop should play much in this saga.
No, I couldn't agree more.
It's more of a kind of like...
It's a friendly nod. They made it. Their lives are this.
And it's also like, I think that like, because Ripley is like, the thing which she's being through those movies is she's just like, she's wise, and that's the thing, like where, and it's that sort of family dynamic. I really like what you're saying about like, it's the dad who's like, talk to your mum, but there's also like the dad who's just kind of like, just sitting it out.
Well, there's two ways of looking at it. If they know, they would want nothing to do with her. They'd have no sympathy and everything else. If they didn't know, why would she have the blessing? So the only thing what
can we do instead?
Because you can't imagine her calling, because if she called, it would have all the wailing corpse stuff on it.
She's got to go there. We've got to see it.
100%. I mean, that's why I like the refueling, like her adamance and doing of everything. You don't see Sigourney.
It feels a bit like that scene in Force Awakens, where they just sort of bump into Han Solo and Chewie, and it's just I wonder if it's maybe this could go the other way round, that like Ripley and Hicks hear about what's going on and get in touch with Newt. that doesn't make sense. It's got to be Newt reaching out to them, maybe trying to get them to come with. She knows it would never go with.
Well, what if we don't introduce Sigourney early on and everything else? What if she's Rebecca, let's call her, all of this happens exactly as it did, they go like via somewhere and stuff like that. The refueling station, let's just say, hasn't got the parents there, but Bishop's there. It's like an old thing. And she's just like, she kind of recognises him, but we don't think anything of it. We just think it might be an older model because we know there were loads of them and everything else. Deal with all of this. When she's then stuck, let's say, in this section of the ship, because she's just done through that, that's gotten rid of all the Marines. She's gone through, found all the eggs, she's stuck there. She knows there's an alien left and everything else. That's when she calls home.
Yeah, that feels like it's like she's her own, because it's like that sort of like calling. That feels like it's not as, sorry, I spat when I said that. It feels like it's not quite as like as a nicer payoff, like it's a phone call, right? It's a bit like, do you remember in Jurassic Park 2, A Lost World, when they phone up, it's Dinosaur Lady, and they phone her up, or maybe it's in Jurassic Park 3 actually, and it just phones up Ellen or wherever she's crying, and it just was like, it felt like just a cheap payday for an old actress.
Or what if there's no actual interaction with them? When we first see her, she's watching the end of a recording. It's like, just please promise. And she's like, anything on? No, it's all good. And we see her watching a clip over and over again, like when she's really scared or really nervous.
I think one of the big fails of this film was not honouring the people which survived this, and just being like, oh, we'll just kill them all off. It felt like...
No, I agree with you.
Like really cheap.
I agree with you.
And it's like, what can we... In which case we need to make something... Because I don't think they could do the Luke Skywalker turning up in an X-Wing thing.
No, because that's too cheesy. And also it defies the point that this is her moment, not she's been saved again.
And it's like, so...
I don't think you'd have them reaching out because they'd know she works for there. So the only thing I can think is as I said, the whole... They're forced to go somewhere where she knows that they're at. Dad finds her. Don't see anything of Sigourney Weaver. It's just the dad just being like, you know why we were so anti it, why we so this, and she's like, I'm doing it.
But do you see it like it puts one of the guiding lights is space and spaceship, and it being complicated and dark and lonely, and like letting the pressure off by going to a pub in the middle of this chaos, because you'd just be like, let's get off the ship.
No, I'm talking about like they refuel and then they head to it.
I know, but even it's like letting the gas off. It's the loneliness of space is the bitch. Yeah. Because you know it's like when you're driving on your own, when you stop at a petrol station, it's quite nice. So that's what I mean. Is that like it should be bookend.
When she's there, perhaps Hicks is still involved in Wayland, like he hasn't left.
Both are.
What if at the very start he runs into her and he's like, don't do this mission, and she's like, and we can see it's Hicks, he's a lot older and everything else, but she outranks him and she's like, no, I'm doing it, and she's like this, and as she goes, she hands him something.
What if Hicks, like, what if the corporation didn't chuck him to the walls and like he actually started teaching people how to deal with Xenos?
Yeah, and then at the end, like not at the end, but before she goes off on the mission where he's like, I can't stop you, this is what you want, but take this with you. And then we don't think anything of it and all this kind of stuff. And it's just like his pack, it's got his gun, his lucky thing, and he's like, please. She's then on there, deals with all of this. As we said, Act 2, end of Act 3, she's in there. She opens up the pack to pull out the gun, finds something in the bottom.
Should be, if it's going to be that, it's got to be his pump action shotgun. I keep this for close encounters.
Yeah, I keep this for close encounters, take it with you, and puts it in a bag and chucks it to her. She's then, when she's in the back, she's all that.
It's still it's cheap. It's cheap. It's not.
I don't see a way of fitting them in.
Yeah, this is the thing. Is that I like. I
think to be honest with you, however you do it, it's going to be a cheap little nod to they made it, because they're not part of the story, so they are a cameo. So any way you introduce them is either going to be completely unorganic or the very unlikely we just bumped into by the nature of it being a cameo. To include them in any more without being that, they then become part of the story.
What if that's the thing? Is that like the thing is that the thing which makes it happen is Ripley saying to Newt, "I know what you're doing. This isn't going to fix it." Because it's that message which she learns through this.
Yes.
And it's like it's coming from somebody who's experienced it. And so that kind of confrontation of like this isn't going to do what you're wanting.
I mean, what if it's just a recorded message? Like,
how's it different from like a phone call or a letter? It's just a modern version of it.
I suppose, but she's in space, so she's not going to get like a live Teams call.
Once again, it's that kind of like. I think that like I think the blessings like it's not. It's kind of lumpy, but like maybe then if it's like.
But the reason for going, like, I just. What would she? I mean, let's think about it. It's two things she would go. She'd either go to just hang out with her and then take off without telling her.
That's the 30-minute mark. So we've got to restart. So we've got 30 left.
Yeah. I don't think there's a way of getting Sigourney Weaver's character in without it being cheesy or a cameo.
The way I see it is it's kind of like feels like in Raiders of the Lost Ark when they go to he meets her in that bar, and do you know what I'm saying, when he goes there to kind of get the headpiece of the staff of Ra, and she's like, I'm coming with you, because it just misses that I'm coming with you bit.
So what? So she's going to do this mission. She goes to visit her mum to get the last bit of information she needs. Why would Sigourney Weaver let her go?
Yeah, but this is the thing, is that like I think that it's a hill which I don't know if I'm willing to die on it, but to reiterate, I completely understand the motivation it has for the character and the new. I fully agree with you. I also agree that my idea of carrying it on here falls flat when you're addressing a huge issue in the series. I could not agree more with. Because there was no reason why we actually. Because the thing is that we could. The only reason to go here is to have Ripley, Hicks, and Newt in it.
Yeah.
If we haven't got Hicks and Ripley, who gives a fuck about Newt? Why don't we go there and have it so it's new person?
But the motivation behind the character of her being terrified, knowing what she goes up against.
There's been like a million of these alien encounters now.
Maybe. I do like the fact that you're addressing an issue with Hicks. I do think that it's a nice nod to the fans. But I don't see how you can bring them in without it being a cameo or something cheesy.
Yeah, it probably does fall into like cameo territory. And as I say, it's a cameo which kind of like has the kiss
100%
at the end.
But how?
You got the wipey wipe. We got to do our act.
But how do you bring her in a way that makes sense to the story? It makes sense to the characters, and I totally hear you. Especially that little bit at the end, that like the recording or whatever she's got, the message, something that's just on repeat, or she's just saying it over and over, and lets it all go. Like I really like it. I really do. I just don't see how she can suddenly spring up without it being like I was here all along.
No, she shouldn't. But that's the thing, is that like if it was some like an encounter, and then like that encounter kind of like pays off later. So seemingly innocuous encounter. So maybe she's just going to see them anyway, and she doesn't know about this thing.
That's how it starts. Forget the she knows. That's perfectly agree. Everything else. It starts with the horror face hug and everything else. Cuts to character going to go say goodbye, like going to the parents, like I'm going back up. This is the next 6 months of the mission. There's still tension. I can't believe you work for them and everything else. We slowly not realise, but it's there, that they're basically pissed that she took a job working for Whaling Corp. But she's like, it's either that or work in this shitty bar for the rest of my life. They're just
Bishop's like, hey,
Yeah, exactly. Hicks is like, your mum just worries about you and everything else. But so they have a big row, and the row is Sigourney Weaver saying to her, I know why you work for them, and it's not going to help. You're trying to look for them, you're not going to find them, it's not going to do it. And then Hicks saying to her afterwards, she just wants you to help be safe and everything else. She flies off, gets there, gets the message, and then at the end, the information that her mum gave her is replayed out.
We got to go, we got to work.
Yes.
And we're at 26 minutes.
We got this.
You guys know the story by now, which is that the way the 3-act structure works is you have Act 1, which is kind of like the main body of the setup of the film. So, what example should I go with today? Let's do...
Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah, Raiders of the Lost Ark. So, Indiana gets approached by some people to say, we need you to find this weird Ark. He goes off, let's say Act 2, he then goes off looking for the Ark. Act 3, the Ark opens up, some Nazis get melted. Act 0.1 is the thing which happens at the beginning, and often it's unrelated seemingly, but it has something to do with it. Raiders of the Lost Ark opens with that amazing thing of Indy going through the jungle, scratching his face before taking the thing and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, it is, as you've said before, and I will continue to coin the promise.
Yeah.
Stick with us, this is what you're into.
Because most films are slow burners, really. The story's a slow burn, so you need something to let the audience know that when they're sat in the cinema, they're happy to be there.
You said it right at the very beginning, and I've circled it about 4 times. Face hugger sequence.
Yeah, so...
Our Act 0.1 might be a little bit longer.
Yeah, I think it's going to be fucking gigantic.
Yeah, but it works really, really
so it's
well.
Like weirdly, almost like, like really exaggerated Bond beginning, or maybe even more than that.
Probably more than that, but in a fantastic way and everything else. To the point where you could, in fact, in this, because it's long enough, care for some of the characters as well. Yeah, so that adds a bit. Ones of which you don't find anything out until we get to Act 2 and we see their mutilated corpse, find out what's happened to them rather than just being faceless bodies. Yeah. But yes, Act 0.1 is the face hugger sequence with the spider webs catching people, getting to know some of the people on this ship. Act 1 starts. Newt is visiting her surrogate parents. There's a big fight where she tells her, you're only doing this as a way of coping, like you should never have worked for them. She storms off. She gets into work. A few days pass, whatever. She gets the call. She sees something on a monitor, sees that it's
like just a single weird shot of something.
Yeah.
And she's like, I know
exactly what that is. She goes to the head of the corps. She's high enough on. She wants to lead an expedition to go find.
We've got expedition.
Exposition, yeah.
Hello, exposition. Austrian.
Expedition to find what's happened.
Yep.
The Whaling Corps give her permission so long as she brings back the cargo.
Yes.
At that point, she takes some Space Marines that go.
Now, Act 2 is really like the bread and butter of 100%. Kind of like whatever you do, you make it worse. So we should spend like some of this 20 minutes kind of like the cause and effect.
100%.
So we got some of that with like the air and...
First point, they arrive in space. It's not where it's supposed to be. They then track it down and realise that the autopilot has obviously been disengaged and it's been attracted by the sun. It is heading into the sun. That makes landing on the ship harder because they have to go faster to land on it. In doing so, it breaks their ship.
Yeah.
They're now stuck on this ship because landing so fast has ruined theirs. So they're like, we need to override the controls and take control of this because we can't get back on ours.
And yeah, break ship. First fix has got to break the antenna. It's just the way it's got to go.
100%. So they've got no radio contact and they can't use their ship, overpower it. 2 teams. One, which is 2/3 or 3/4 of the group, go chase up the aliens because Newt's like, we're not taking any fucking things. She sends 2 people to go fix.
I think like if we maybe we keep them. The first alien should almost be kind of like, oh, like that was intense. So like in Aliens, when they first start going around OE426 and they just secure the place, and it's intense. but really all they get from it is they get Newt, and it's kind of like it's classic horror movie. Open the cupboard, nobody's in there, turn around. So I think maybe if they're all compact and they're kind of going through this thing, we have some scary hunting of them hunting Xeno down.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I'm just saying that immediately they send 2 people off to go fix this because they're hurtling towards.
Well, this is. I think that like maybe like because once again that feels too much like I'm just going to go investigate the funny noise in the barn. So if they arrive, because they know that the fucking Xeno's anywhere, and they're just purely 100% focused on the tug, because they don't know anything about this shit yet. So when they arrive here on the tug's big.
Right, okay.
So
I figured this is the tug, this is the cockpit. They've landed in here.
Yeah, so the tug itself is also it's fucking massive. So yeah, there's like cockpit section, there's living quarters, blah, 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 like big jets and all this sort of stuff off it. They land here, fuck up their landing. That didn't go well. Ship's now broken. That's a big problem. Well, look, first problem's we got a Xeno in here. We can't do anything with that thing whirring around. It's going to kill us.
Yep.
So they get in, and you've got super intense dark corridors going around.
Yeah, the beep, beep, beep.
And that can play out quite a long time. So, Alien hunt.
Yes.
They get the alien. Ooh, that was scary and intense. Pulse rifles. Now you've got the thing of like, okay, this is lovely. We would love to celebrate, but we have got this fucking problem. So now you get like this is the moment to split people up, is because the heat's off.
I like it, yeah.
So like now you get 2 going to the front who realise this is a big issue, and you got 2 going to the back.
Well, it's Newt with someone else to be like, before Wayland will take over the ship, I'll never see it again. I want to know if there's any indication of where it's come from.
Newt's going back.
So Newt, now that the Xenomorph's been dealt with, she's like, I'll never get inside this ship again after it gets handed over. I want to see if I can find out where it came from.
So maybe they send like...
So they send a bunch of people up front to deal with that, because that's the problem. It's hurtling towards the sun. She goes off with 1 or 2 others.
Maybe she could go with another android, like a new version of Android.
Yeah, that sounds good. In this, when she's finding out where it's from and she's trying to track down the information, the ship manifest, anything, so she gets closer to finding out a bit more about the alien, that's when the other Xenomorph comes out.
Unless we do the dinner table callback. That like everybody's relaxed, everyone's chill, and that's when something comes out and they're like, why is there 2 aliens?
Yes, I like it. Yeah. And then instead of it being like a chest burster scene, it's an alien comes down from the... Yeah, and then like, so they're all sat there like, haha, and it's like this and they're like that.
So that galvanizes them.
But they're not... Why would they be sat eating if they're hurtling towards the sun?
Yeah, so like if like maybe they do take control...
Or if they're not eating, if it's a case of they're still dealing with this, the door's welded shut, it's going to take us a bit of time, but we should be okay.
Yeah, they could just ease off the gas and like, you know, what are you going to do if 2 people are fixing the front?
So it's a guy just sits down at dinner and then like sits down on one of those tables, doesn't necessarily eat, but just sat there like, and then Xenomorph bursts through, picks him up. That has a classic scene.
So then you got...
so it's a throwback to the face hugger.
So we got, I'm going to call it dinner, but it's not actually dinner.
Yeah, well, dinner for the Xenomorph.
Dinner attack.
Yeah. This is when the group say to her, like, what the hell? And she's like, all my research has always told me 1 egg, 1 alien, like 1 face hugger.
What's going on?
There must be more. Like,
well, okay. How did they even get in here? It's like, well, we need to go.
This is now a problem, so they leave 2 guys behind, 1 to guard him whilst he fixes it, because they're like, although there's more Xenomorphs in it, if we don't get this fucking open, we're all dead anyway.
Newt and people need to find out what's up.
They then go into here.
So this is where the split happens.
Yep.
Times 2 in cab. Times rest. Doing their different missions.
Yep.
So then you got Newt heading into the back, and that's when she finds in this one.
There's more aliens. That's when they then retreat back, cut the oxygen off.
We could have a 0G fight.
Yeah, that would be sick.
I've never seen. So let's have a 0G
alien. Yeah, nice.
So you've got like acid blood in 0G,
Yeah.
and just them kind of like pushing through.
Yeah, love it. You then have them retreat. That's when they're like, we've got to take out the oxygen things, like stop them coming through.
Yeah, you get your Hudson character being like, why is the air coming from back there? And it's like, I didn't build the fucking thing. It just cycles through and it needs to push it back. What's it, fuck you.
So that breaks when we're in the firefight, in the zero gravity, that breaks. There's now no oxygen going, which forces them to push through again.
Because it was like, there's a fix, which is that you can go further back.
You can go further back, yeah. So then she pushes through. This whole section here is so pushing through ends here. In this sequence, basically all dead.
If we actually, sorry, just briefly, if this isn't done during this, but on their way back, if Newt, because I really like that, you try to fix it. It's not like you're haphazard. It's just you try. So she's like, I think they're using the airlines to kind of get through. If we cut this one off and use this just one tie line past, we'll be fine.
Yeah.
It's like, is that going to be enough oxygen? She's like, well, it should be. It's just going to be doing the one of them. That's when we have an encounter that like it fucks stuff up. One of them blows, starts venting stuff, and that now means that they've got oxygen is running out. Do you see? Because it's rather than it being like I knocked my bottle over, it's like if I pour my bottle down, will that be better?
Yeah.
It's that kind of that's that alien thing.
You then get the start of Act 3, which is essentially, I'm going to call it Act 3 and Act 3.5. Act 3 is the oxygen has run out and it's them going through to fix it. It is the battle in here, which I think this part could be the zero gravity. That battle, start of Act 3. I like the zero gravity bit here, but that could be just a normal firefight.
Swap positions.
Yes, because then it's like by taking out the oxygen, they've also taken out the artificial gravity. Oh,
I didn't pause it.
By taking out the oxygen, they've also taken out the gravity. Then you've got this in two parts. The first part is them getting slaughtered, basically down to like the last man, and it's just Newt left, but there's no aliens left. She gets through here. Forget the sun trap thing because we don't have enough time. She gets through here, finds out it's a Wayland ship, and there are a shit ton of eggs.
Just exactly what they're after.
And then she's like, Jesus. She's like, have you got the door open or anything else? These guys, when this zero gravity fight is happening, cuts back. Both these guys get taken out. She manages to turn the oxygen on, makes her way to the back of the ship. As she leaves, we, the audience, see that one of the eggs.
What would be intense, right, is if to get to back here, for this you have to do like outside of the ship. Like you got to do a spacewalk.
Yeah.
And it's like she gets over there, gets on board this bit around here, does all this sort of stuff, and it's like fucking hell, that's intense, fixes it, finds out there's more eggs in there, that's what's going on. On the way back, we have a shot where the camera kind of like rolls over to see Xenos on the outside of the ship.
Yeah, I love it.
Just kind of like some of them moving, some of them doing stuff. So they're kind of like, this is real. Like, what the fuck are you going to do about that? It's real problem. So as she's moving, there, like you got like another one kind of scurrying, almost play for play, other side of the containers.
Mm-hmm.
We got.
Actually no, I like it, but I'd have one small change.
Yep.
It's just one xenomorph left. Because then you're giving a nice throwback to the original Alien with it just her versus
so
one.
Oxygen pipe, then we got Newt into main Wayland Yokaturu.
Yeah.
And that's where we find that there's like loads of eggs.
They've known about it. One of them's hatched, and that's the point. She then recognises that there must be at least one more alien on board. Panics, can't get through, goes on the outside. We then see that there's an alien on the outside.
Well, so it should be a facehugger at this point then, unless there are full size Xenos on board as well.
Yeah, or maybe there's just like a box that's been ripped open or something like that. Something like, because it doesn't have to necessarily be, these could be the eggs, could just be one of these bastards has gotten out during the firefight. Like, you don't know they got them all. It's not like they got
because it'd be an egg for each of the people driving the thing. So it's only like, so it's like 5 people, so there's only 5 Xenos.
Yeah.
So like, what if, I like your thing about in this, it's like a cocktail of different shit.
Yeah. And one of them is a Xeno that's woken up.
Yeah, it's like a bunch of Xenos, bunch of stuff, maybe even a queen kind of like stuffed in something.
Yeah. And then, so she panics, realises one of the Xenomorphs is awake, goes on the outside of the ship to try and lose it. It joins her. She gets back in here, sealed in. She has the typical one-on-one fight with the alien, everything else, which would be outside of the ship. She manages to get back in. These guys, bless their hearts, before they died, were able to open the door. She locks herself in the cockpit. She's umming and ahhing what to do. Wayland managed to like send a message, like recorded, so she looks, and it's them telling her she has to bring the ship back. Whatever she does, she has to bring the ship back. She's like, fuck you, and all this kind of stuff. It's a pre-recorded, recorded, because obviously it's not live.
I think like to put like more of Newt into it, that she's like, her motivation still at this point isn't the same as Ripley. She wants to learn and control this stuff.
Yeah.
So when she goes in there and sees all this stuff, she's like, that's good. I've now got control of this. And so that like, when it comes to, this is the thing, is that like what Ripley gets through to her is that like, you can't control it. And like, her life was trying to win it by destroying it. You're trying to win it by controlling it. You gotta just let it go.
Yeah, which is exactly what she does when she gets in here. She manages to jettison the compartment.
So we need the tumbling to. So we've got the dinner attack, oxygen, main pipe.
Well, when you've got this, before she gets there, what if, like one of the last fights, there's a gun goes off and it takes something out that causes the thing to spin?
Because you've got the air leak from the oxygen thing, and that could be enough. Like if that's pushing air out, it's going to start course correcting it, and so it's like in that exchange, it kills. Like we're now spinning, so spinning to sun, and so this is the reason why she has to go back for oxygen for her friends up the front here, but she's also got to kind of like, that's important to kind of get the ship back on course because it'll stop pissing out gas to kind of like kill that vent and turn another one on.
Yeah.
So she goes ahead, does that. Inside there, the realization that this thing is basically just like a floating corporation alien learning pod. It's like full of like everything in there. Yeah, exactly. Maybe even have a predator in there, just kind of like frozen away or something.
Yeah. I like that. That's a nice touch.
So Mr. Predator's in there, and like that, she's like, fuck. Goes, fixes that problem. Goes back. Single Xeno comes with. Maybe that's the thing, is that before she in this fight, this is where like the rest of the team die actually, like in that, or maybe it's her and one other who's controlling this, because then like what would be great is in, like in Star Wars, use the Force, Luke. That's like under the noise of everything else. There's that moment of quiet where he's just like flying along, and there's that beautiful John Williams music playing. Do you see what I mean? And it's kind of like. You just see it like it's a moment of clarity in all of this carnage. So we've got like the ship spinning, so it's strobing, her fucking power's on and off. She's managed to get this going on, but that's kind of like meant that something burst, and so now it's like hurtling straight towards the sun. Everything's fucking chaotic. The Marines are shooting but running out of ammo. What are we gonna do? Or is it just her on her own with the fucking Xeno coming in? I can't quite get it to fit. The one-on-one is great. This has got to be one-on-one.
I think this is just one-on-one on the way back. I think once the aliens have been dealt with, none of them survive. She finds this out. She comes out, fixes the oxygen so the ship stops spinning. She fixes it, but in doing so, it diverts out. All of this starts spewing, like it changes the direction. So rather than blocking, it's going round. But this now causes it to spin because by turning it on or whatever.
Do you know what? We could do a Cameron where, like, unbeknownst to her, that like this wasn't a venting problem. This was a hole, and like there's a pilot light or something. So what happens when she starts the oxygen back up, it kind of goes through, hits the pilot light, and then blows it up.
Yeah, sending the thing spiraling. The one guy that's managed to get in there tells her, like, we've got control. He's like, I can jet, but all I can do is jettison. And she's like, no, don't you dare. And
I want this.
Like, I want this.
Yeah.
And he's just like, I'm running out of ideas. She's like, this is direct order. He's there kind of like twiddling his thumbs. She makes her way to go round on the outside of the ship as it's spinning. He's like, you're a crazy bitch, whatever like that. As we see the xenomorph on the outside. She gets in. You have the single hunt and everything else. Doesn't last too long, but lasts long enough for it to be a nice kind of cameo bit. She gets in. Alien gets locked out. She's not like Ripley. She can't fight it. She can't do whatever. She's like this. And then she's just like, just get rid of it. Like, she has that kind of get rid of it. And he's like, thank you, ma'am. Hits the button. Thing jettisons off. And they go. Because that's how it ends. The idea being with Alien, there's possible sequels and everything else. We've seen that the alien is on the outside of the ship in the sequel.
Well, that's what you should do if you're doing a fucking Alien movie. Perfectly timed. If you're doing an Alien movie, is that happens. You always think you win.
Yeah.
Did I do good, Bishop? Yeah, you did good. And so we know that like it's not over. The thing's separated up. So now we have an exchange in the front of the cab with one Colonial Marine, her, and a Xeno on the outside.
Yeah, and that's how it ends.
I think you could probably. We got 4 minutes. I think we could make a really cool moment.
I think you could make it a cool moment, but I feel like it's long enough as it is. Anything else in that takes away from this. I feel like our final epic Act 3 is the single nuke, just like her mum.
It's that kind of like, it's the difference between like the Cameron is a bitch for this, where like you think it's over. She's not just Cameron. There's quite a few films which do this. Whereas like what you've got is the Event Horizon ending, where it's all over, and then the door closes with. Do you see what I mean? It's
Yeah. No, it's a bit of a cheap shot. Okay, but
we could do something intense here. We just need to think of something which would be.
How long have we got?
We've got 3.5 minutes to think of an intense thing up the front.
Facehugger acting scene. Newt meets her parents. They say, you'll never get over it this way. She goes on, gets on board with the alien, breaks the ship landing, gets in, takes out the one alien. They're having dinner, another alien attacks. Jesus, what's going on? Explore the rest of the ship. You open it. Oxygen fight, massive fight out. These guys also die. Well, one of those guys dies as opening it. She realises, thinks the aliens are done, gets into the other section, finds them. One of the xenomorphs breaks out. Xenomorph comes to the front of the ship. She gets in the front. They jettison. Everything's fine. Xenomorph is in the back.
What would be cool?
If this thing was bigger than just a cockpit, then the explosion.
It's big in there.
Yeah. So the explosion rattles it, and he's just like, I just can't seem to get it straight. And it's like, poof, something goes, and they start shuffling. And he's like, I need to get us off the trajectory. He's like, I've only got a limited amount of turning. Poof, something else goes. He's trying to steer it out, and he's like, poof, something else goes. He's like, fine. And she's just like, whew. And at that point, the second burst, he's just like, we're losing oxygen rapidly. Like, go fix the hole. Like, spacesuit goes out to the back to find out where they're bleeding oxygen, and that's when the thing bursts out. She has the fight.
More intense is some sort of like thing where like there's a count and it's too heavy, so it's like something's going on that, like, I don't know whether it's like this is it's expecting this amount of weight, but it's like too much on board. And it's like, well, how can that be? We got rid of. We got what's going on. It's like we've got more mass. Like, we're close to this. We're dealing with like tiny little bits. I don't know. Did you bring your purse with you? What's happening? And it's like we're dragging something, and it's like that doesn't make sense in space because doesn't have drag, but something where like it's something where.
What they're okay. So
how a door
drag,
stuck open?
No. He's cleared it, and it's like they're still heading towards the sun, and he's just like, we're still not past it. He's like, we're not heading into it, but we're still going to hit the outside of it, and outside of the sun is just as hot as the fucking inside of the sun. It's like, why haven't we cleared the trajectory? It's like something's pulling us still, like all this.
It's not quite there. We're close. So, like, what about like a door which isn't shutting, or a
a door that's not shutting. They're leaking oxygen, so they've put on their helmets and stuff like that.
Yeah, they put on their helmets for all of this anyway.
Yeah.
Because like,
he's like, the oxygen level's still dropping. He's just like, there must be a fault in the line. She's like, she's like, it should be its own
they could
thing.
be kind of like laughing about it, like we got away with this, everything's good. The cabin won't repressurize. It's obviously just something stuck in the thing. You hang here, I'll take care of it. And she's just like, go for that. And that's when, like, starts to the creep happens.
Yeah. She goes out. He's been ripped to pieces.
How can she kill it in 13 seconds?
Sod sequels. She just kind of looks at it, realizes things unkillable and everything else like that, and then just moves the steering wheel, starts heading straight back towards the sun.
It's a difficult one. I mean, it's alien films, so they're fucking difficult.
Yeah, but I think that's good, because I'm like, then and you could save it in the sequel. You could do loads of other stuff.
I think in our summing up, something's going to come to us.
Yeah, I agree.
Speaking of summing up, we should do that. But first of all,
well done, dude.
Nice job, Michael.
Yeah. I like how you pretty much had that almost perfect first time off the bat.
I don't know, like it's
Works well. So
summing up time.
Let's stick this on the wall and see where we're at.
So let's get all this shit off the table here.
Yep, you got your bits.
Yeah.
Nice.
All right.
Yeah, I've got it. Here we go.
Thanks, Mike. There we go. Nice.
Okay, so once again, we have our 3-act structure. You saw we just spent the last hour on it. Went very well.
Yes.
And this is us. So take us with our 0.1, Matt.
All right. So 0.1 in this film is going to be longer than on most stuff. So we pick up this film from after Aliens. And it starts off with there's a kind of like, how do you describe it? Like a big main kind of like tug cabinet thing, and then behind that is a big load of like cargo. And so we're with these dudes, and there's a single facehugger on board this ship, and it plays out like proper horror of this facehugger scurrying around the place, hunting people, because we haven't seen just a facehugger on its own doing its thing.
Yeah, lots of spider web kind of stuff. Yeah. I liked your idea of like laying it out, people knocking it, feeling away.
And then kind of scurrying off, and then like lowering down and doing all sorts of, basically just everything scary that spiders do, the facehugger does it, but it's bigger.
Yeah.
And so eventually it kind of like jumps on a person, and that's when that ends.
Yeah.
We then pick up for Act 1.
At this point, Newt we don't know is Newt, a girl, is visiting her parents. We see that is Ripley and Hicks. We then realise it's Newt. They call her Newt. She says, don't call me Newt, call me Rebecca. They're angry that she works for this company. Sigourney Weaver's character, Ripley, very clearly says, this is not the way to get over this. You want to control them. I wanted to kill them. It's just better to let it go.
Yeah.
And she's like, she leaves. We then get her working for Whaling Corp. She's a scientist. We can see she's very high up in the business. She comes across some footage.
Maybe like one of the kind of smarmy corporate people is just like, I hear this is right in your wheelhouse. Like, this thing's gone missing,
Yeah, and then she looks into it. She sees the edge of a facehugger. She goes immediately to her superiors and be like, this is the closest thing we've come to it. She's like, I think there was something on this ship. I want to go in and retrieve it.
And they're like, that suits us because we want the cargo. So
they say, we'll give you a team, but you must bring back the cargo ship in its entirety. Not just the specimen, we want the whole ship back.
It'd be nice if they're leaving, like that kind of like nod to Aliens of like the stopping in the doorway, being like, don't come back without that cargo. I know your family's got history here.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, exactly. She then gets on the Space Marines, Colonial Marines. Colonial Marines coming in. They arrive in space. The ship's not where it's supposed to be. They're like, it's much further ahead. They're like, something's gone wrong with its autopilot. It's being pulled into the sun. It's like, we got to go quick. So they
intense space flying stuff, because that's an important part of Aliens is the ships and kind of like the fun of flying.
100%. Comes in, takes out the antenna, takes out something else. They manage to get on board. The ship is falling apart. At this point, they work out that they're like, we're never going to get back on it. We've got no radio, no nothing. Newt's like, we do not split up. We deal with this xenomorph. She's like, it doesn't matter how long we're here. If this thing is around, it will take us off bit by bit. Yeah. We work as a team.
So now we've got a really scary, intense section in the main kind of like tug of the cargo vessel, just hunting down this Xeno with the Colonial Marines ready to go.
No, not in the thing, just in the main like living quarters of
the
ship.
It's like it's this big kind of thing with like living quarters and all that stuff.
And they find it, they kill it.
Yeah.
At this point, Newt is ecstatic, or they call her Rebecca. She's ecstatic. She's like, you two go work on doing the door. They go to the door, the door's welded shut. They're like, do this. She's fascinated by the creature. She's studying and everything else. One of the Marines sits down at the same kind of dinner table, sits there, stomach's hurting, kind of little nod from indigestion. Xenomorph bursts down, grabs him, pulls up. They then freak out. They kill the second Xenomorph. At this point, they're like, what the hell's going on? She's like, one hugger, one egg, one alien. She's like,
that's what it's been. What the hell's going on?
She's like, if there's a second one, she's like, the only explanation is there's more eggs. So they're like, you two keep working on the door because we got to get control of this ship before it goes into the sun. They then go into the main area. At this point, they realise there are more than one alien.
Yeah, so we sort of like, she could do like a nice cool, kind of check the shipping manifest and be like, there's nothing else in here, like there's only one way to be sure is to go into this.
Yeah.
So now we go, how does this work? So we've got the dinner, the group split, so two have gone to the cab. We then have them going into like the main depressurized cargo container stuff, looking for what's up. They find in this one more Xenos than that.
Yes, they find more Xenos. There's a big fight.
Is this the Zero G?
This is the Zero G.
Yeah, so we have like this amazing sequence. I don't think we've seen this, where like we have them in sort of spacesuits, the aliens are in Zero G.
Yeah.
What the hell that would look like? I mean, that's gonna be awesome.
Yeah.
So big Zero G Xeno fight thing.
She at this point, like before the Zero G fight, they kill a couple more. They're like, how are they getting round us? So they go into the cargo hold. One of them comes out from behind them and kills them. They're like, how are they getting around? Because they must be getting through the air ducts. Let's take out one of the air ducts. They do. That switches off the gravity. They then go in and have the full body.
I don't think you've got gravity back here. Gravity's only at the front.
Yeah, okay, so the gravity doesn't go. They then have the fight.
Yeah.
All of them are taken out except for one dude that manages to get to the front of the ship. The door's been open at this point because we also see at this time the two guys working on the front door are killed, but they managed to get it open. He goes in, takes control of the ship, and it's just like, we're sagging, like it's going to be tough, we'd just about make it. She then discovers the back chamber. In the back chamber that's not supposed to be there, she calls up to him, how many containers are logged on this ship? It's like, one. He's like, I'm staring at a second. And he's just like, why do they want to bring it back so bad? And she's then, something clocks, she opens the door, and in there are loads of eggs in like special chambers, clearly frozen. There's a couple of xenomorphs. We see the edge of a queen. We also see
a predator,
all in there. She then realizes, as she's then going through, one more xenomorph's left. She's not a Marine. She can't deal with it. She goes on the outside of the ship.
So she's got to fix this back bit first, which causes chaos.
Yeah, so she fixes the back bit, causes chaos. The thing starts to spin. She gets on the outside. We get a cool flashing sequence. She gets out the front. As she's at the front, she's able to jettison the whole thing, which she's really annoyed about, but she does. It's life or death. They're then flying off. She has this moment of kind of like, you can't control it, hearing Ripley. She jettisons the whole cargo.
That goes into the sun.
Goes into the sun.
They're now clear.
They're now clear. And she's this kind of like sobbing controllably. She's let go, literally, physically and mentally, everything else. At this point, they laugh things off. He's just like, we're getting some, we can't stabilise compression, might be something wrong, goes out. The alien has got on board the ship, starts ripping him to pieces. She is able to just seal off the cargo bit. The alien's ripping at the door. She's just like that, and she's just like, let's go. Turns off the autocorrect, and the spacecraft, the top of the ship starts to drift towards the sun. End. Hugger, family, crap load of things go wrong with the ship. One encounter, there's more. Zero gravity, get to the front, thinks she's safe, jettisons, typical bait and switch, aliens there. Ends with her hurtling towards the sun, replaying some song over and over again or something for dramatic purpose or whatever. Alien.
Nice job. Yeah.
So that's
So what do you call it? Alien 3?
Alien resuscitation.
What would you call it? What about if we just, rather than Alien Cubed, we went with Alien 3? As a fuck you to Aliens 3.
Aliens 3.
That does not scan.
No. And Aliens.
But really, other than, because that is Alien Cubed, which is what...
Yeah, so this is just Alien 3.
We could get away with that?
Yeah, why not? Leave it to marketing.
Yeah.
So that's Alien tackled. Now, previously, if you've been keeping up, obviously we did RoboCop way back when.
Yep.
Apologies if they didn't look as good as some of the newer ones we've done. We did Predator.
Yes.
We've now done Alien.
Yes.
So it kind of makes sense. Are our ideas good enough to go head to head? Are these bad boys good enough to go head to head?
Yeah.
How do we fix Alien versus Predator? So next month, AVP.
Yeah, good luck with that one. See you later.